Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out, you don't know just how insane Keith Moon's life was.
There are three things about Keith Moon we can absolutely be sure of.
Wow.
1, he was a fantastic drummer. 2, he was an even better showman. And 3, he was slightly nuts. From blowing up drum sets on live TV to riding hovercrafts across his own lawn. Let's have a look at the insane life of Moon the Loon.
All right.
Yeah, if you're interested in one of my
Yes.
hotels.
You can write a book about it.
It was clear from the start with a name like Keith Moon
Oh, wait, hang on.
that he
Y'all be sure to go to Music Mongoose and like and subscribe. I'm not a huge The Who fan, but I've heard the legends of Keith Moon. Tell me more.
You can write a book about it.
It was clear from the start with a name like Keith Moon that he wasn't meant for a boring life. He was born in Wembley, London, and began learning the drums as a teenager.
Show me on a map. Show me on a map. Wembley. Oh, yes. Oh. Near Wembley Stadium, I assume? Yes, it is. Wembley is a district in the London Borough of Brent, northwest London, 8 miles northwest of Charing Cross. It includes the neighborhoods of Alperton, Kinton, North Wembley, Preston, Sudbury, Talkington, and Wembley Park. The population was 102,856 in 2011. Looks nice. All right, now we know.
Legend has it, in 1964, he went to see the band play in a local pub. After the first half of the set, he swaggered up to the band and informed them that he could play better than the session musician they had in to play the drums. They, possibly out of fear, possibly out of curiosity, allowed him to play the second half of the set with them. And the
What? What did he say? What was that conversation like? Hey, I'm better than your drummer. What? Get out of here, right? Like, that's what most people would say. But well, okay, maybe he said, I know this song better than that guy. He played it wrong, and da-da-da. Maybe, I don't know. How would you win them over like that? That's a tough sell. Yeah, maybe out of fear. maybe he pulled a knife out.
rest is history. Moon quickly became a key member of the band. Roger Daltrey thought he was misunderstood by many. The general perception of Keith Moon as a drummer is that he was chaotic, sloppy, but it was anything but. It's just that his algorithms were a little bit different. That's all it was.
Algorithms.
He played with every instrument playing on stage, and he managed to make it work. I understand how it wasn't four-to-the-floor rock and roll drumming, but for The Who, it was perfect.
Yeah, you know, when I think of Keith Moon playing, I in my mind, I picture this. Like just going everywhere. But I kind of wonder if I'm basing that off of some TV show that I watched him play on where they weren't really allowed to play. They were like lip syncing, but with drums, air drumming, I guess. And so maybe he was doing that sarcastically. I don't know. That's how I picture it, though. But it doesn't sound like that. It doesn't sound that chaotic.
But it wasn't just his musicianship that made him so popular. His showmanship also drew in a lot of fans. From very early on in his career with The Who, Moon started to show some destructive tendencies. It became a bit of a thing for him to destroy his drum kit after each show. Bearing in mind he was known for having one of the biggest sets in the scene, so it was a costly decision night after night. By the way, if you want to watch this video and all of my videos completely ad-free, you can support me at patreon.com/musicmongoose.
Yo, be sure to go to Music Mongoose and like and subscribe. Yeah, I'm torn about destroying musical instruments. I think when you're at the show, you're in the audience, it's like, oh my God, what are they doing? But watching it on video or, you know, after the fact, it's kind of like, what a waste, you know? There are kids all over the world who would love to have this musical equipment, and they just can't afford it. And these guys are ripping it up. They're destroying it. I get it too. Like, I don't know. I'm torn, as I say. Also, those drums are heavy and they hurt. I'm a drummer. I've carried them around. I've dropped a cymbal stand on my foot. You know what I mean? I've hit an edge and the side of the bass drum goes into my ribs. It hurts. It's metal and they have rough edges. It's like hard. It hurts. And they're just throwing it in the audience. Damn.
Now, the madness also extended to the offstage portion of Keith Moon's life. On The Who's first tour, he got introduced to cherry bombs. This, as you can probably imagine,
that's what we saw
was
at the
not
beginning.
good. Pete Townsend explained in his book how one day he was in Moon's hotel room and asked to use his toilet, only to find that the toilet was in fact no longer there. Moon sheepishly explained to him how the cherry bomb he had lit was about to go off in his hand, so he had thrown it in the toilet as an attempt to stop it. Townsend asked how many he had, only to be shown a case of about 500 of the things. The band was soon in the habit of being kicked out of hotel rooms because Keith Moon kept blowing up the toilets.
Keith, what are you doing, man? Somebody needs to have a... Somebody needed to sit him down and talk some sense into him. What are you doing? This is not normal. That's terrifying. I would be afraid of this guy. You don't know when a bomb's gonna blow off. Blow up.
Sitting there, the water came up to there in the room. Next thing, the water went shoom, and the ceiling in the room below had given way. And then that went through, and the ceiling in the room below that. So when people say, Keith, have you ever smashed up a hotel room? I said, yes, well, 3 in one fell swoop.
Oh my god. Just thinking, like, how expensive was that? What in the world?
The destruction of fancy hotel rooms got so bad, they were soon relegated to cheap holiday inns across the USA to minimise the damage.
Okay,
he quickly
someone's
earned the
smart.
well-deserved nickname Moon the Loon from the press.
Go right ahead, Keith. Good to see you again. You know, a lot of you young rock and roll musicians are going to be big stars someday. Just like Keith here. We know what it's like to be on tour, going from town to town, ending up in some crummy hotel like this one. Let's face it, when you get to your room, the first thing you want to do is destroy it. What the heck? It's not yours.
And
What
these
the heck?
antics weren't one-offs.
Wow.
In fact, it gets worse. One of rock's greatest myths revolves around Keith Moon's 21st birthday party. Now, it's worth mentioning that there are conflicting accounts of this event, most likely because everyone involved was absolutely wasted, but I'll explain what was reported. It was August 1967, and The Who had just played a show in Flint, Michigan. Moon later reported to the Rolling Stone magazine in 1972 that he had started drinking at 10 a.m. that morning and couldn't remember playing the show, which of course bodes very well. What he did remember, however, was the fact that a drum company had sent him a ginormous birthday cake to the hotel they were staying at. So when the party started later that evening, the obvious thing to do was to start
Food
a
fight.
massive fight with the cake. As the party degenerated into a slanging, I picked up the cake, all 5 tiers, and hurled it at the throng. People had started picking up the pieces and hurling it about. Everybody was covered in marzipan and icing sugar and fruitcake.
Wow.
When Moon was told to
Fruitcake.
stop by his manager and the police at this point, he, dressed only in his underwear, ran away and jumped into the first car he saw, a brand new Lincoln Continental. He then drove this car through a gate and straight into the Holiday Inn swimming pool. Remarkably, Moon didn't seem to be too bothered by the thought of drowning in that car. Today I can think of less outrageous ways of going than drowning in a Lincoln Continental in a Holiday Inn swimming pool. But at the time, I had no thoughts of death whatsoever. There was none of that all my life passing before my eyes in a flash. I was busy planning.
Someone needed... Yo, I don't think he was... He should have been on, like, watch. He should be locked away. He was a danger to himself. Wow. Keith.
The 60s progressed, Moon's onstage antics got more and more ambitious. The perfect example of this is The Who's appearance on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour in 1967. This has gone down in legend. Perhaps foolishly, the host, Tommy Smothers, had given them free rein to destroy their equipment, however they liked, having seen them at a recent festival doing just that. So Keith Moon took this as a bit of a challenge. He had a small cannon next to his drum kit, filled with theatrical flash powder. Now, he was told very firmly that he himself was not allowed to load it. But when the technicians weren't looking, he filled it with extra charge. The director of the Who documentary, The Kids Are All Right, Jeff Stein, said it was 10 times the legal amount of gunpowder you're allowed to use on a soundstage.
10?
Keith bribed a stagehand, and I think he got him loaded on some booze. And this played out as well as you'd expect.
John Entwistle's like, I'm going to keep this bass.
When the explosion went off, Moon was injured by his own cymbal. Townsend's hair caught fire, and he suffered partial hearing loss for the rest of his life. The whole studio shook when it happened. So Moon certainly had his moments through the years, but perhaps the drugs, drink, and devil-may-care attitude were always destined to catch up with him. His bandmates recognised where this was all going. I was obsessed with trying to keep Keith alive. It was quite clear that he was on a downward slide, and there was very little I could do. He was a very complicated character, and this wasn't helped by a tragic incident in 1970.
Hang on. Like, he should... It seems like he should be locked up after he put all those people in danger with explosives, doesn't it? It just feels like maybe he's a danger to everyone around him. He's a menace to society. He should, be watched, right? Can't leave it up to Pete Townsend to do that.
Involved in an altercation outside the Red Lion pub in Hatton. As he tried to flee in his Bentley, he accidentally struck and killed his bodyguard, a man called Neil Boland. Miraculously, Moon was only charged with drunk driving, Boland's death being deemed an accident by the judge. But it signalled a new low for the drummer. The drugs and the drinking got worse. In 1973, Moon famously passed out on stage partway through a gig. Perhaps used to it by this point, the band soldiered on, enlisting the help of a young fan called Scott Halpin to take Moon's place and finish the gig. Another dark turn was when Moon bought a one-man...
Yeah, no, tour's cancelled. Tour's cancelled, right? This is wild.
...hovercraft and finished the gig. Another dark turn was when Moon bought a one-man hovercraft. After zooming round the garden in it, he inexplicably decided it was then time to dress up as an infamous Nazi by the name of Erwin Rommel. He then drove through the village to the railway tracks in a car towing the hovercraft, with the plan seemingly being to get a photograph of the hovercraft on the tracks.
Wow.
When Keith Moon put the keys in the ignition, however, the hovercraft didn't start, and what followed was a series of phone conversations where Moon managed to stop the scheduled trains while they tried to get the hovercraft off the tracks. By the mid to late 70s, Moon's health had significantly declined. Everything that had made him a bit of a character back in the day, like vandalising hotel rooms, had become a sure signal that he was fighting a losing battle. Addiction was at the heart of his problems, and in 1978 he attempted to detox from alcohol in his home. He had been prescribed a drug to help with this process, but sadly it was this drug that he overdosed on the 7th of September 1978. He died just aged 32. His death was ruled accidental. Coincidentally, the same age John Bonham was when he died, another powerhouse drummer. I made a video recently exploring and celebrating one of Led Zeppelin's greatest songs, Black Dog. You can watch it over there.
What a dark turn there at the end. Wow. Yeah, see, he shouldn't... That's not safe, Keith. It's crazy how, like, at first it's kind of funny and it's like, whoa, this guy's wild. What's he gonna do? This is crazy and fun. And then at some point it's like, oh, that's why you don't do that stuff. If you're in a band and you play the drums. Just like relax, right? Just like be chill if you can. If you don't like your drums, donate them to your local high school. Well, I'd like to say thanks to my patrons. Thanks to my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see y'all next time. Oh, be sure to go to Music Mongoose and like and subscribe.